Ready? Action. We finally got our Triple F Elite Sports Training cover up here so we can separate Hut and Triple F and make sure that anything we do is specifically designed to the product we're doing it for, right? Hut's more fun, and catching up with some of the boys from the old days, my NFL days, and folks that, might not live here in Knoxville and different things. But anytime we're on here and it's Triple F time, I want to talk about this facility. And the only thing I can really do to start this podcast, bro, is just thank God.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no rational, reason that we're sitting here right now besides Jesus. And Kevin O'Shea in the house, newest member of Triple F Elite Sports Training and our coaching staff. Obviously, your vast experience in life, right? I think we both share that, and God has us sitting here on purpose. And I'm excited you're here, bro. I love you so much. I love your family. And I'm excited about what you're going to bring to the team. Not only our adults leading our adult program, we'll save that for another podcast and really let the world know just how fired up we are about expanding our adult program. And initially, when I first opened this place, I said, you know what, man, let's just do kids. Well, guess what? Those kids that we're trying to serve have parents that when they become healthier and they take fitness seriously and they feel better getting out of bed in the mornings, and now the kids thrive, and then the kids are here too. And so we'll talk about that stuff later. I'm excited. But today, let's talk about the release of our official mindset training with Kevin O'Shea. And I am fired up about it, bro. So I'll just kind of push it to you and let you go with it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And I have to start by talking about what you mentioned. It literally makes no sense that I'm sitting here in Knoxville, Tennessee, across the table from Lee Smith at Triple F Elite, training facility. It was not in my plan to end up here, but I've come to find out the best things in my life usually aren't my plan, they're God's plan. And I share in the gratitude of sitting here and having this experience. I don't even really know where to start as far as what landed me here. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but the fact of the matter is I'm here, and our paths crossed where I was able to approach you, and I had seen the gym from as an outside perspective, and I loved the mission and what you were trying to build here beyond this just being about the training. And I approached you, and my background's actually in behavioral health, and I played college football, and the physical piece has always been a big deal to me, and it's something I prioritize. And I was a personal trainer when I was younger, and current CSCS, and the physical piece is important to me. But my recent experience has actually been in behavioral health, and for the last decade down in South Florida, before I relocated up here, I've been running an intensive outpatient counseling center for those that suffer with alcoholism and addiction, and the co-occurring mental health stuff that goes along with that. So when we crossed paths, I thought it was a perfect fit to add it as a complementary piece to what I knew you were doing physically here for these kids. So yeah, I look forward to bringing my experience and being able to serve these kids in their entirety beyond the physical piece. Because listen, I was an athlete, like I said, and football changed my life, and for those that are pursuing greatness in their sport, that's amazing. We encourage that, and we encourage competition. We want them all to be the best, but the truth is it goes so far beyond the physical piece, just in the realm of performance. And then even beyond that, how do we get these kids, because they are kids, right, to develop into healthy men and women moving forward, so they're successful on the field, but then they're also successful in life, however they choose to define success.
You know me, bro. I'm a simple man. So I tell my kids all the time, the strongest part of your body, and they always finish the sentence for me, is your mind.
Yeah.
And I will always prioritize that here at Triple F and I tell the parents all the time, man, you are paying us and you're here and you value that we're going to, collapse time on your kids' athletic growth and development. And what Rich does is just unbelievable. There's no way I could even begin to explain how special that man is at developing kids athletically, on top of being a wonderful husband, father, mentor to every kid in this place. So there's a reason this place starts with faith family, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's what I always wanted, but we all just do it naturally, right? Like we make sure the kids know, hey, being a husband is more important than being a player. Being a father is more important than being a player. Hey, girls, like being the best version of yourself, being a mother one day, being just a bad to the bone human being. And we do it in passing. We do our Bible studies and our Monday night stuff. But I just knew, like, there's more. How do I strategically plan a way to grow people's minds?
Right.
And we do it naturally every day, and the grittiness of training and everything we do on these floors, and then these kids are on their teams and they play high school baseball or soccer or team sports in general, relying on the men next to you type of things, and the character development that being a good teammate does for the rest of your life is why I love athletics. But I just always knew, like, man, this place is more than that. This place is more than that. Like, we're going to naturally pour into the kids in a different way than your traditional training environment will, because that's why, I built this place, quite honestly. But how do we do it in a way to where it's strategic, and this hour or that hour or this conference or this seminar is strictly teaching kids how to strengthen their minds to accomplish the things they want to accomplish? And then what do you know? My big man upstairs, who, like you said, has a plan even when you don't think he does, boom, Kevin O'Shea enters my life. So as we release mindset training, which is what we will call it for now, who knows what God has planned? It seems like that made the most sense. We're going to train our minds. And that's one thing, like when I have a basketball player come in here, and whether their mom or dad or whoever is with me, I'm like, hey, man, the game's I don't care if you're a 7th grader or a 12th grader. Hey, man, game's on the line. There's 3,000 people screaming. You can barely hear yourself think. The cheerleaders are all waving their pom-poms. You're at the free throw line. You got 2 shots. You're down by 1. Are you 100% sure it goes in? And 95% of the kids say no.
Right.
And immediately I'm like, we got to fix that first. And in my brain, it's always, I'm going to pour into them. Rich is going to pour into them. They're going to jump higher. They're going to run faster. They're going to be in a Christ-centered environment, and they're just going to become a stronger version of themselves. But I didn't truly have a plan, or the person, most importantly, that was going to say, no, Lee, here's how we add to the experience to make sure they're standing at the free throw line. And when they miss a shot, they're like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. Or they miss a tackle, or they're in their stance, or they're standing at the plate, or wherever, just this durable mindset of, I'm good, I'm prepared, I've been here before, and I believe in myself, most importantly. Because then when they have marital issues, when they have a boss they don't like, when addiction might try to attack them, Satan's after these kids, man.
Yeah.
And when they have all these things that they got to fight off, how do they get prepared for that over just me making them grittier by a workout, right? So just talk to me a little bit, man. Like, give me a little bit of your philosophy, how you got to the point to where you're serving in the clinic setting that you were, why you're passionate about it, why you believe in it, and why it's going to be such a great deal for our kids. I already know the answers, but just for everybody else out there, man, that has a kid, it's so many parents. And where's that stupid cell phone of mine? It doesn't help anything, right? These kids are just getting attacked all the time, bro.
Yeah.
And now, not finally, there's a lot of people in the world doing great things, but now finally at Triple F, all these parents that have asked me, like, man, I just want him to be more confident, or I just want him to believe in himself more, or I just want him, like we talked about somebody the other day, and after this I'm going to shut up.
Yeah.
We won't name names, but we had a certain female athlete here that, we had some issues. Well, it doesn't surprisingly enough, it's not really a confidence issue. It's a grown man yelling at her issue, right? So it's like, it's not the issue that she's not confident. She's one of the strongest alpha females I've been around. She's a teenager, and she comes in here with these boys and wears their butt out.
Yep.
But then guess what? An adult male yells at her. She's not used to that because her father doesn't yell at her. Her father's a great man. Not that if you yell at females, you're a bad person, but just come down here and yell at me and see how it goes for you. That's kind of what I want to relay out there to all the male coaches yelling at teenage girls. Come see me and let's yell at me, see how it goes for you. But we draw the line in the sand. What is the real issue? That's the first thing you said to me that made the most sense, is you're like, Lee, it's not just these kids are unconfident. We have to get to the grassroots of what is really the issue. And once we find that out, then we blossom. And that's what I was like, all right, this is the dude. Thank you, God. I love it. I'm fired up. Kevin O'Shea, baby. So talk to me, man.
Yeah, of course. And I do just want to say first, because I'm not a big title guy, and we came up with the title for this position and whatnot, but I remember I told you when we were doing that, like, I want to make sure that this doesn't set me apart from the rest of the coaches, because everybody is doing what you said. Like, everybody on the floor that is coaching the kids in the long-term athletic development program, and obviously I like to think I do it with the adults in the mornings and whatnot, they are coaching beyond form, technique, and literal athleticism. They are touching the hearts and minds of these kids in subtle ways, or sometimes not so subtle ways, but it is a priority for everybody on staff. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't separate in that I was the only one doing it, but just creating some awareness that we're going to prioritize it here, because it is as important as you talked about. Like, yeah, the confidence thing is huge for people. Like, confidence comes from reps. Like, if I take enough reps, I will have faith that I will be able to perform at the level that I've been repping this thing out, right? So a lot of these kids will gain confidence just from their participation in the athletic portion of what we're offering here. The more you rep it out, the more free throws you shoot, the more confident you're going to be that you're going to hit one when the game's on the line. Confidence may be an issue, and reps can solve that. But a lot of times what people call lack of confidence, there's really something going on beyond the surface that's just kind of presenting as that, if you will. And I guess I'll get into this briefly, like why, who am I to even speak on this stuff, right? Before we kind of go any deeper, and just to be as brief as I possibly can, but tell the whole story, and tell the story honestly, because I had to do this when you interviewed me, right? I was like, man, I can't tell you the truth unless I give you my story, because it's been so impactful in the way that I operate currently.
I hate to cut you off.
Yeah.
No need to be brief, my brother.
Okay.
Like, at the end of the day, these parents are going to trust us, right?
Right.
My testimony is out there.
Yeah.
I'm so stinking flawed. I fight it every day. As you know, I'm out of my mind half the time. I'm not well adjusted in a lot of ways. Ran and hit people for a living for a long time and all those things. Don't be brief.
Okay.
Let's tell people who Kevin O'Shea is,
Yeah.
why you're here, how God transformed your life, and why when you're sitting down with their kids, it's someone that's road tested.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as like growing up goes, I grew up in northern New Jersey in an amazing family. My dad provided well for us. I never wanted or needed for anything in my entire life. My mom stayed home, and I got a sister that's 3.5 years younger than me, and my parents are still together. Like, really cool, amazing family dynamic. Not that our family didn't have stuff going on, everybody's family does, right? But I had that. I was a 3-sport athlete. I was a straight A student. I had friends. I had girlfriends. I was popular. And the only reason I'm painting this picture is because if you would have looked at my life from the outside looking in, you would have said it was perfect. And honestly, I would have had a really hard time arguing that. And for whatever reason, obviously I have my experience and an opinion based off my experience as to like what was going on, knowing what I know now in hindsight, but I didn't know at the time. For whatever reason, it didn't matter how many touchdowns I scored, or how good looking my girlfriend was, or how awesome my family dynamic was, or how many amazing resources I had growing up to train at different places and to do certain things and whatnot. Like, my internal condition never matched my external circumstances. So like, even getting straight A's, I'd be plagued by this feeling that like I wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't going to live up to anybody's expectations. And like, looking back on it now, again, with my experience, to me, there was a spiritual disconnect in my being that just left me restless and like discontent with my circumstances. And I was always looking for something outside of me to make me feel better about me. And the first thing that ever did that was football, because I was the best player on the field and whatnot. And all of this was really God-given ability in the classroom, on the field. And I mean, I know you've played at the highest level. Like, that natural ability and that talent like works until it doesn't work, right? Like, eventually you're going to come up against a dude that's more talented than you. Eventually you're going to come up against a guy that's smarter than you, or whatever it may be. And that eventually happened to me in college. But like, even in high school, man, like, I'm living this life and externally everything looks amazing. And I just like am plagued by this feeling that I'm a fraud, man. Like, I'm not going to live up to these expectations. I'm like kind of driven by fear, like afraid of what other people think of me. And I'd overcompensate for that by coming off super confident and whatever. And long story short, man, at 13, 14 years old, like, I started drinking. And I got drunk for the first time at that age. And I got to say, like, what I'm about to say makes this sound appealing, but the back end of my story shows where it can lead. And I want to, like, lead with that because I know that there's plenty of teenagers that felt exactly what I was feeling in that time. And what happened for me when I drank, the truth is that all that stuff went away. It really did. I felt like I could breathe for the first time. I felt like I fit in. I didn't really want to be anybody else. I was just like present in that moment. And it became a solution for me to a problem that I didn't even know I had. And if you're a kid listening to this and you feel like that's a potential solution to you, I understand that based on the way that I just phrased that. And I want to caution that, like, here's the issue with that. If you're like me, what happens is, like, once I start drinking, I have a really hard time stopping drinking. So I have, like, very little control over that. And what happens is you might wake up one day, like I woke up one day at almost 25 years old with absolutely no coping skills on how to handle life. No ability to regulate my emotions, no ability to have any control over my mindset or my thinking or anything like that. And I wake up as a grown man, literally able to operate in the world as if I'm a child because I haven't learned how to live, right? And what happened for me is I was able to kind of hold it together for a long time. And when I got to college, I ended up getting addicted to opiates and burnt my life to the ground really fast. And I can sit here today, spoiler alert, that I'm coming up on 8 years of sobriety, abstinent from drugs and alcohol, which is an amazing thing. And I'll talk about how this really influences the mindset. This is kind of why we're telling the story. But, like, you know, we talked about this when I got on, like, where do you want me to go with this? And you said, don't be brief. And you said, take them all the way and this and that. And I look back on my experience and then I, really contemplate and pray. It's like, what adds value to the people listening to this podcast right now? And I could tell stories that are horrendous. And to be the kid that came from where I came from and to end up in the places that I ended up, doing the things that I did with the people that I did it with, like, somebody like me has no business living the way that I was living. I mean, I was raised right. I was raised with morals and values. I was taught the difference between right and wrong. And this stuff just got me, man, as it gets some people. There's a certain percentage of the population that's wired like me, and there's a certain percentage that's not. And I don't need to know why I'm wired this way, but I am wired this way. And the truth is, when I talk about kind of what this was like, I mean, everybody, whether they're raised by their parents or not, has people that are raising them that care about them and love them. And the truth about my addiction is it hurt the people that I loved the most because they were the easiest to manipulate. And, like, yeah, I robbed, I cheated, I stole, I got politely asked to leave college and never come back based on some things I was doing up there that they couldn't prove and whatnot. And I paid the physical consequences for this addiction all along the way. And I kept pushing back the line. If as long as I don't do this, then I'm not really in trouble. As long as I don't do this, I'm not really in trouble. And I just cross this line and cross this line and cross this line and cross this line. But along the way of crossing those lines, like, one story really comes to mind where it's like, I got back from this treatment center and about 3 days before Mother's Day, and I had a horrible knack for ruining Mother's Day when I was out here in the grips of my addiction. And this was not the first time I went to treatment. It wasn't the last time I went to treatment. So it was in that moment where I'd given my family, the people that love me the most and that I say I love the most, just a little bit of hope that I was going to actually get better this time. And I haven't been back but 3 days, and I used the day I got back. And I held it together for a couple days, and I go out to breakfast on Mother's Day, and I'm clearly under the influence, so much so that I nod out and fall down in my pancakes on Mother's Day and at breakfast in the restaurant. And my mom looks at me with that heartbroken look that people who love us and care about us look at it. They look at us that way from time to time if you've lived some of the kind of like how I've lived. And it's one thing it's one thing for the family to be hopeless, that I was never going to get better. And it's another thing to give them a little bit of hope and take it away, and give them a little bit of hope and take them away. And that's what I was in the process of doing. And I ended up at my parents' house, and I come to and I wake up, and I'm like convinced, I'm out of here. I'm going to go live my life and keep using the way I was using. I don't need to be around this family dynamic. I'm only hurting them. I just got to get out of here. And The day before this, I was actually visiting my grandfather who was on his deathbed. And that was my dad's dad. So obviously when you're in the grips of addiction, it's about the most selfish and self-centered thing you could ever be a part of. So I have no concern for that. I have no concern for my mother, who I just killed, emotionally speaking, on Mother's Day. And I got no concern for my father, who was dealing with his dad about to pass away. All I'm concerned with is I got to go and get another one, because like I'm about to get physically ill from this stuff. And like I said, I can't operate in life without it. I don't stand a chance. And I'm trying to leave the house, and I had passed out. So my dad took my money and my keys and everything that was on me, and I'm at the front door of the house trying to leave. And he's standing at the door, and we're screaming in each other's face, because at this point, this is about the only way we communicate. And my dad, beyond providing for our family growing up, he coached me in all my youth sports. He was around. He would leave New York City to drive back to northern New Jersey to be at, Pee Wee football practice, and about the only guy doing what he was doing at the level he was doing it, financially speaking, that was leaving early to come coach his kid at football. With that being said, and our relationship today is amazing. That being said, when I was younger, I perceived him more as the coach. Like we weren't talking about our emotions and telling each other how we feel or whatnot. He was a disciplinarian, he was a coach, and that was our relationship up until that point, at least how I perceived it, especially when I was under the influence, because that would skew my perspective in obviously a big time way. And we're yelling at each other in the face and screaming at each other's face, and my mom's crying watching it, my sister's crying watching it, and right at the point where I think it's about to come to blows, my dad stops dead in his tracks, and he goes, Kevin, I've never said this before, and I'm never going to say this again. I need you right now. I can't worry about my son and my dad dying on the same day. Please don't leave this house. And it wasn't enough to stop me, because that's the power of addiction and alcoholism. And what happened is I end up leaving the house eventually, and a couple days later some stuff happens while I'm out there. I'm living in this suburban trap house, and then something happens, and I got nowhere to stay, and I call this treatment center that I had just left at this point about 10 days ago, and I called them up, said I need to come back. I went home, I didn't live right. Will you take me back? And they say, yeah, we do, we will. And I called my dad. I said, listen, I got it set up to go back to Florida and go to this treatment center. I just need a ride to the airport. And he gives me a ride. He gives me a carton of cigarettes, because I was smoking at the time, and a lighter. And he says, do it or don't do it. If you don't do it, don't ever call me again. And my grandfather dies when I'm on the plane going into this treatment center. I find out about a week later when they let me off this little detox period. And I was crushed, man. And if you would have asked me in that moment if I was ever going to drink or use drugs again, I would have said no, and I would have passed a lie detector test, because I got smacked in the face with the truth about my situation, which was everything I tell you I love. Put that in between me and go and get another one, and I'm going to go get another one every single time. I just proved that I will, and I will continue to do that unless I find a way out of this deal. And I would have passed that lie detector test, but the truth is that was not the last time I ended up in a treatment center, and that was not the last time I drank or used drugs. And I ended up in a position down in South Florida, sitting next to railroad tracks, doing what I was doing the way that I like to do it, and literally saying out loud, I hate my freaking life, because I was in a position of hopelessness that people like me get to if they're lucky enough to survive, which is I could not imagine my life clean and sober, because I had no idea how to live, and I could not imagine my life continuing to use drugs, because it wasn't working anymore. That relief that I found when I was 13, 14 years old was no longer a thing. And I got to a jumping off point where, like I said, I couldn't imagine my life with it or without it. And I went into, God willing, my last treatment center. Not even, I don't want to say I didn't have the desire to get sober, but I'll say I wasn't hopeful that I could. I just didn't think it was possible for somebody like me. And something happened. When I was in there, God intervened on my life, and I had a moment of clarity that I then followed up with action. And I sit here today, almost 8 years sober, and from that experience, what I learned a bunch. It is the reason I have to share it is because my program of recovery that allows me to maintain sobriety today influences every area of my life. So I can't be authentic. I can't be truthful about why I care about mindset or why I care about even coaching high school football, because in a lot of ways, I flushed my football career down the toilet because I'd party, I'd drink, I wouldn't train. I tore my hamstring 3 years in a row because I failed my conditioning test because I wouldn't train all summer. And then they make me run at 5 a.m. and the workload, I can never handle it. So my sophomore, junior, and senior year playing college football, I wasted. And the biggest pain about the addiction is definitely the harm that I caused to my loved ones. But one of the biggest regrets, only because time is finite, is like I never knew how good I could have been. And I wouldn't have played in the NFL, but, how good could I have been? Could I have been a big-time receiver at the school I was at? Could I have played at a higher level than I ultimately played at if I would have taken it a little more seriously in high school? But I say all that to say a big reason I coach high school football now is it's my way of making it right and giving back to the sport that really, truly did give so much to me. And what I learned from that experience in the treatment center about really saying that I wasn't going to and ultimately drinking and using again is I learned the power of my spiritual condition and how much that influenced my life, and I learned the power of my mind. And you talked about that early on, talking to your kids about the strongest part of their body being their mind. It better be. It better be, because the way that I view mindset is like, okay, the body might be the machinery, and if we think about it in terms of a car, physically speaking, the mindset would be the steering wheel. And while it's only a small part of the actual physical machinery, without a steering wheel, you have no direction. So it doesn't matter how good the engine is, doesn't matter how good the tires are, doesn't matter how good the suspension is or horsepower or any of that. If you can't control it and you can't direct it where you want it to go, what good is it? So I don't know where you want to go from there. I know it kind of dumped a lot on you, but that's why my personal experience shows me the kid that was the 3-sport athlete, that was the best player on the field, that ultimately ended up, that was raised right and has an amazing family and all that type of stuff, ended up where I ended up. And there's a lot of people that are way less fortunate than me that it was like, I feel like I was kind of born on third base and got caught trying to steal home. You know what I'm saying? I know people don't even feel like they have a bat to take a swing, right? And it's all my experiences were self-imposed, and while I went from, living the way I was living to voluntarily living in places I had no business being in. But the benefit of that is that I feel like I got to live two different lives in one lifetime. And so I have experience, because the kid in the mansion's got problems too. But the kid here in the east side of town, he's got different problems. You know what I'm saying? And both of them need to be addressed in different ways. And both of them need to be handled in a specific way, but they both have them. And my ability to have the experience of coming where I come from, potentially what kind of expectations that comes with, and living the way I was living and kind of knowing what that's like. And I don't pretend to know what it's like to come into that and only know that, because I know both. So I don't pretend to know stuff I don't know about or guess or theorize, but I have a little bit of experience in that way of living too. You know what I'm saying? And being able to apply the same solution to both sets of problems is something that I think is valuable to the population here, because there's a very cool mix of people that come from both here. And just being in a position to be able to serve any and all of those populations is just something that I don't take lightly, and I'm grateful for my experience now, because it's uniquely put me in a position to be able to do that.
Wow. So I knew most of that, but not all of it. And God is good, bro. Like, yeah. We're sitting here together, and the two things that come to my mind in that is, the one thing I've noticed a lot of the times is when people give their testimony to high school kids, mine specifically, and I've noticed it and I learned it once Brody got a little older. And my wife will kill me if I go down the rabbit hole of what happens inside our home, so we'll keep that private because that's our family. But at the same time, he's a 15-year-old boy with 15-year-old boy desires,
yeah.
Right? And in his mind, it's, Dad, well, you did it. Dad, you got arrested. Dad, you had a big time drinking problem. Dad, you did this, you did that, and now look at you. You're a business owner. You played a long time in the NFL. Like in his brain, his 15-year-old brain, he's like, I don't understand why it's so bad. Like, and it's like, dude, because I am not the norm. Like, you have to understand that all the people that have the same story as me, those 7 years, that they don't come out of it. Like the story doesn't end well. Only God decides Kevin O'Shea. It's almost like Bruce Irvin, my dog, who this whole podcast situation was set up for me and Bruce in the beginning. He just keeps coming back to play football at 36 years old. But we'll get his butt down here. Trap house, inner city of Atlanta. Bruce is as black as these pads. I'm a white redneck from Tennessee. We're brothers, man. It's crazy how our relationship and bond grew. And I forget where I was going, but I had Bruce on my mind. Dang it, I hate when that happens. Just having to get hit in the head too much. But my point is, like, every single dude has their story, and not many guys that go through certain things. Oh, that's what it was. I knew I had to talk myself back into it. Bruce down here one day, we were talking. He's like, man, sometimes it almost feels like I'm chosen. Like, God didn't let me dudes don't get through what I went through. I mean, Bruce dropped out of high school, was living the life, and then he ends up being a 10-plus year vet, Super Bowl champion, made $50 million, like, beautiful wife, healthy family. Like, he's like, man, everybody that was beside me in that trap house is either dead, in jail, or still in that trap house. So that's what I want these kids to understand is stop hearing only part of the story. Stop hearing what they went through, instead of understanding that they are here to tell you it's not the norm to get out of it. And the other thing I want people to understand too is, you hear it, that I heard when you were talking, is so many people, you hear it all the time as a parent. Man, it's crazy how they're all different. I have 4 kids, they're all different. Man, it's crazy how, this kid from the mansion turned to drugs. It's crazy how this kid from the projects became a doctor. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's mindset.
Yeah.
like it's mindset. Yeah. The kid that from the mansion that became a crackhead, or the kid from the mansion that became a CEO, the only difference in those two was mindset.
Yeah.
And not saying that the parents failed one and not the other. They raised them both the same way. For whatever reason, they were born different, and different things was able to attack one person's mind and not the other.
Right.
Same thing in the projects, which I'm a nurture over nature guy, bro. Like, typically speaking, psychologically speaking, you typically learn from your parents, you do well, and if you have married parents, you get taught the right things like you're talking about. But at the same time, there's plenty of dudes that grew up with a single mom in the projects that became doctors. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of dudes that grew up with successful dads in New York that ended up in a trap house.
Yep.
I get it. The percentages say the better you're raised and the more you're around, which once again goes back to my passion here. Like, let's put good men around these boys so they can see what good men look like. Let's put good men around these little girls. Like, hey, your coach yells at you as a teenage girl. No man should ever yell at you. That's my opinion. Mm-hmm. And if you don't agree with me, then I'm sorry. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you. But telling these little girls, like, no, men don't yell at you. That's not how it's supposed to work. Have I yelled at my wife? Of course I have, for crying out loud. Nobody can make me more mad than she can. But, like, all these little things, I believe in nurture over nature, man. Like, the more great people you're around, the more great examples you see, the more faithful, strong men of God you see, like, the better of a chance you have. I do believe in that. But at the same time, that's not saying that certain people get attacked in between their ears, and for whatever reason they don't have the tools. It's like trying to go build a house with all you got's a dang screwdriver.
Yeah.
Screwdrivers are awesome when you need to unscrew something.
Right.
Screwdrivers aren't awesome when you need a dang hammer.
Exactly.
So that's what I hear for you, man, is 2 things. Like you said, any kid out there that all they heard was, man, I feel like he's saying, and he said alcohol helps. No, that's not what we're saying.
Right.
No. We're not saying that when you're a teenager, get drunk all the time, and later on you'll figure it out, and then everything's going to be fine. You'll be Kevin O'Shea. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that these things got us because of mindset and because of things we didn't understand. Now we're going to try to help you understand it to where you don't need that crap.
Right.
So you don't become the 95% of people that turn to that crap that don't make it out.
Exactly.
We're not just going to hope and pray that you're the 5%. We want to help you avoid the 95%. Is that fair? Of like, that's what I hear is like, dang man, that's so true. I remember tons of times sitting in a Bible study as a 15-year-old, and it was a dude up there talking about everything he had been through, and now, he is saved, and, Christ had transformed him, and I'm thinking, dang, man, all right, I'm just going to keep partying.
Yeah.
When I'm 21, I'll get right like he did. No.
Yeah.
I wish someone would have grabbed me and said, you're an idiot.
Right.
Like, you are literally going to ruin your life. And I tried so many times. And I'm glad we're here together, brother. And I'm fired up to get going on this mindset training adventure with you. So what are the things that fires me up, man? Is because so many kids. I'm juiced.
Yeah. Well, let me touch on that real quick, because I never want my testimony, as you put it, to be like licensed to behave the way that I behaved, right?
100%.
Because the truth is, I'm undoubtedly the exception, as you're the exception. Like, I'm pretty sure there's 9 or 10 kids on my high school football team, my age or younger, that are no longer alive, because we were a bunch of degenerates. We drank before every game. We used drugs before every game. And we paid the consequences. We went 0-10 my senior year of high school. A lot of people don't know that. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but we couldn't get right. We were a bunch of degenerates, right? We prioritized all this stuff over that, and part of the reason I have that regret when it comes to football. But being down in South Florida, big in the recovery community down there, I mean, I lost count of the people that pass away, and this is not because I don't think it works. And naturally, kids are hardwired to think, well, he's the exception to the rule. I'm going to also be the exception to the rule. And I understand telling people that are listening here, any of the kids in this facility, that, oh, so-and-so died, and I know all these, it doesn't resonate with them because they don't know. But all I can do is talk about my experience, and I cannot be any more clear that, like, divine intervention was the only thing that broke me free from that, because on my own power and doing it the way that I had been doing it, I didn't stand a chance to get out on my own. And the other thing I want to touch on based on what you said, because I don't know, this might be me projecting a little bit, but I hope parents whose kids are going through different struggles, whether it's alcoholism and addiction or some sort of, depressive deal or anxiety or whatever it may be, like, first and foremost, I am a new parent right now, which is amazing. And we can talk about, like, how beautiful my life is on the back end of this if we want to. But, like, there's no judgment cast from my perspective on the parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know from my experience, like, my parents did an amazing job, first and foremost, but however they did the best they could with where they were at, because we're all getting conditioned from the time we come up into this world. And for me, I got sober right before I turned 26, so that's 2.5 decades of that conditioning, because I wasn't spiritually awakened to an alternative perspective, right? So the same is true of my parents, and the same is true of their parents before that, and the same is true, so on and so forth, all the way down the line. And a lot of times what happens with kids is, like, it's not even what's said, like, because it's not taught, it's caught. And, like, the crazy thing about this mindset stuff is it's so hard to see what's really going on unless you actually reverse engineer the behavior all the way back to the driving belief. Because the way that it can work is two people can have the same limiting belief that I'm unworthy and unlovable, okay? Person A can spend their whole life trying to run away from that and use their external circumstances to prove that it's not true. And that might create a very materially successful life. Now, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be fulfilled because it's never going to be enough. They're chasing something to solve for a problem that can't be solved with those resources. We're essentially talking about a spiritual problem that we're trying to solve with a material solution. So it almost works. It will never be enough. So that's like an indefinite chase, and the spiritual and emotional consequences of never getting that fed is what will get caught by the child in the household. So there's no judgment because that person is doing the best they can. And on top of that person doing the best they can, the entire society is telling them how good of a job they're doing.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And now person B, somebody like me who falls into the grips of alcoholism and addiction, which, by the way, I think there's a genetic piece of this that runs in my family, so I got it. Some people got it, they don't. And then there's a spiritual component to it, and that spiritual disconnect from God is ultimately what drives us to the substance in the first place, and then the physical piece takes over and we're a runaway train until God intervenes. But the person B, somebody potentially like me who might have that limiting belief system, which like nobody told me that. My mom told me she loved me all the time. You know what I'm saying? It was just like hardwired. It seems to me like hardwired into my DNA. I'll believe that. So what happened for me, like early on, yes, straight A's, yes, best player on the football field, all this external validation that I desperately needed, the round of applause, the hey, buddy, you're doing a good job, all this type of stuff. I realized by 14, 15, that's not feeding this. I still feel unworthy. I still feel unlovable. So I'll believe it. And then all my behavior is the guy that's drinking and using drugs and burning his life to the ground. So like both people are coming from the same place. One is running away from it as fast as they can, and one is running towards it. So it looks like how does the Fortune 500 CEO and the homeless alcoholic, how do they have anything in common? They might be running from the same belief. And I'm not saying every Fortune 500 CEO is miserable. I would say that every homeless alcoholic is suffering from a belief that they're unworthy or they're unlovable. Otherwise, they'd never get to that place, right? Yep. But point being is this stuff is like insidious. It's slippery. And without like a level of awareness, which we just don't talk about this stuff, you know, without a certain level of awareness, it's impossible to demonstrate anything different than the way we've been conditioned to demonstrate, if that makes sense.
It makes 150% sense. And like I always forget my man's name. I see faces and I could pick him out of a lineup 100 out of 100 times. But like, believe it or not, people commit suicide in Ferraris.
Yeah.
Like, how about we start challenging ourselves to be happy, not whatever we view as successful? Because everyone has a different view of success. Like, let's just work on being happy.
Yeah.
And like waking up beside my beautiful bride every day and my kids and this place thriving, whether it be financially or how it impacts people or Kevin O'Shea coming into my life. You know, obviously we got to pay the bills around here. There's a business aspect to everything. I got that. But like when I wake up, am I excited about my life? If the answer is no, we have a huge problem because everything you think is going to fulfill that is not. And that's one thing that my wife said the other day, and I'm going to keep bringing her up. She's going to be mad at me. I got to keep private, right? But she's like, does everybody deal with this? And I'm like, yeah. Are you kidding me? Like everybody's dealing with 10 times this. We have great kids. Our kids have been raised right. They're going to have to learn certain things the hard way. But the problem is no one's talking about it. Right. I said, I would like to go on the podcast tomorrow and tell every person in Knoxville every single thing our kids have done this week. And she's looking at me like, you've lost your mind. Yeah. And she's like, some things can stay personally. You don't have to be an open book about everything. I'm like, I know, babe. I'm not seriously going to go on the podcast and talk about all our nitty gritty, you know, because that's not good for I have a 13-year-old girl. Every single thing that goes on with her the world doesn't need to know about it. I have a 15-year-old boy. Everything that he goes through, the whole world doesn't need to know about it. My 2 younger kids are still young. They haven't quite hit that puberty stage to where they're trying to find themselves. But it's nobody's business what my kids go through. I agree with her 100%. But with people we're close with, like people that we know love us, the problem is people are so cowardly that they try to use your inefficient qualities and your weaknesses against you, which causes fear to ever be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And what I want people to understand with this mindset training stuff is, like, whether it's Lee Smith or Kevin O'Shea or whoever, like, we're all going through it. Yeah. Like, stop being ashamed. Stop feeling like every single thing that goes wrong in my house, my wife immediately, she felt as a parent. Right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're the baddest ass, excuse my language, Mom, I know. Like, I've been around the block, baby. I've been around a lot of moms, a lot of husbands, a lot of wives. Like, my wife is a gangster. She's the best. But guess what? They're kids. And they all have a different mindset issue they're trying to work through that as parents, sometimes we might not see the root of. But you get them with a Kevin O'Shea and let them know, hey, Kev loves you. Let's go spend some time with Kev. Like, you might not be comfortable telling Mom, you might not be comfortable telling Dad. Anything you tell Kev is between you and Kev. Like, Kev's got your back. Kev ain't running to me saying, hey, Brody told me this, or Amanda told me this, or Brock told me this, or Addison told me this. Like, Kev's got you. Kev's got your back. And I want parents to know that's what we're doing. Right. We're not trying to infiltrate your personal lives and question your parenting skills or, tell your kids, well, your mom shouldn't have done that, or your dad. No. We're trying to figure out why your child is having the struggle they're having between their ears and get to the root of it and help them thrive.
Yeah, no doubt. And brought up your wife a couple times. My wife will kill me if I don't shout her out. So my wife, Caitlin, is that's my best friend right there. And she's a big reason why I'm in Knoxville. And so, like, I'm super grateful for her. And we've been able to kind of have a cool ride since we've been here, married, and new baby, and all these new opportunities. And it's been amazing. So I just wanted to make sure I dropped that in there. So
just for the record, baby Jesus over here, the most handsome guy on staff at Triple F. I need some mindset training on how to be more confident with as ugly as I am, hanging out with your ass all the time. But
we're gonna need to do an individual on that one.
You got it.
So let me say this real quick also. So you brought that up, like, I think the priority, because you said happy and then you said fulfilled, and I think fulfilled is actually a better aim, right? Because like the feelings are fleeting, right? And we feel like when we're in these negative emotions, they're going to last forever, and we feel like when we're in these positive emotions, when they're all just emotions and we're all humans having a human experience, you're going to experience the entire spectrum. But the way we're wired, I feel like the negative ones are going to last forever, and the positive ones, it's only a matter of time before they leave, and therefore setting our sights on something that's so fleeting is probably not a great aim. Let's aim for fulfillment, because that's spiritual in nature, right? And that's our souls getting fed and whatnot. And yeah, I think that does need to be the aim. And this is what fulfills me, which is like, again, it's without getting too into the nitty gritty, like my sobriety is, and the reason you talked about this, like our stories are valuable once we transcend the problem, right? Like my story is a tragedy until God intervenes in my life and I have the spiritual awakening and I'm able to show up different in the world as a guy that, not to like comment on myself, but that most people would have no idea about my background based on the way I look, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe potentially the way I carry myself, but like that's God's handiwork in my life, and putting my past in God's hands now makes it an asset rather than a liability, because I can serve people with it. So like, that's why I'm comfortable enough getting vulnerable and sharing about it, because listen, it's my story and I have no problem telling it, but I have a mom and a dad that are part of that story, you know what I'm saying? And I've made it clear to them, as my mom understands and everybody understands, that like this story is now being used to help people, and they can tell it from their perspective and I can tell it from my perspective. And that's why we did that. But I also did that because like I'll go first, right? As far as like getting vulnerable, and hopefully that makes people comfortable trusting me, you know, with as counterintuitive that I'm going to trust the guy that was addicted to drugs, right? Like, but like A, because I'm willing to get vulnerable, with B, for those that don't know, like my program of recovery is dependent on my spiritual condition. So like who you're trusting with your kid is somebody that literally has to live his life by a code of spiritual principles. I have to, or I don't stay sober and I don't stay fulfilled, right? Yep. It's the only way I can operate. So hopefully that vulnerability makes parents and families comfortable enough to trust me. And I understand it takes a big time amount of trust. Trust me with the kids, knowing that like this is going to be between them and I. I'm never going to tell them anything that's going to hurt them. My job is going to be to observe, increase their level of awareness, and tell them the truth. That's what I'm going to do in a very loving way, and hold the space for them to feel and talk about whatever it is they need to talk about. And obviously everybody takes things to the extremes. Extreme circumstances would get handled in different ways and whatnot, but the generic run-of-the-mill, I don't really know what it is, but something's going on, or it's this or that, or all the way up to full-blown addiction, whatever it may be, like all that stuff is in my realm of experience, and anything that exists within my realm of experience, I'm totally comfortable handling. If something comes up outside that realm, I'm not going to play doctor, I'm not going to play psychiatrist, I'm none of those things. I'm a guy here who has a bunch of life experience that's looking to use it to serve this population. And if it doesn't have enough reach, then we'll find somebody to help your kid, right? But I just want people to know, oh, what is this? Is it therapy? Is it this? Is it that? It's like, no, it's not that, right? Like, we are addressing the belief systems, thought processes, emotional unmanageability, and the resulting behavioral adaptations that come with all of that stuff in a safe setting, using experience and increasing awareness to develop practices that will benefit them on the field from day one, but then also moving forward as they grow into the young men and women that they're going to be.
I love it, man. I love it. And that's for anybody that stayed around this long, like, and listen, the world's a crazy place. How long we've been going here. You can break up 3 minutes of this and make us seem like we're trying to act like we're sports psychologists all you want. And, I'm not interested in all the Twitter haters and all that stuff. We're not sports psychologists.
Right.
We're not psychiatrists. We're sure not prescribing medicine around here, right? We're using our experiences and the things God brought us out of to help other people not get stuck in that briar patch. Right. And my experience is football. Like, why do people, like if I'm at Bearden High School and we're coaching football together, why do people trust me when I have a comment about the run game? Oh, I don't know, because I played 11 years in the NFL, right? Not because I have some fancy degree hanging on my in my office. Expertise of football, 6 years, master's, PhD. No, experience, baby, right? Like, we're here to use our experience to help kids grow. The times that our experience doesn't match, or there might be a true medical need, we're the first ones going to call the experts and the people that are highly educated, highly skilled, and quite honestly, a gift from God as well to serve these kids in extreme circumstances.
Right.
So we're not here for that. We're not here to act like we're, deserving of medical treatments or medical advice. We're here to use our experiences, and that's why I love that you're here. Man, I'm a fart in a whirlwind, running around trying to serve this community any way I can through Triple F. And this is very important to me, bro. And I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited to watch you help these kids. But I'm glad that you hit that at the end here of like, we're here to use our experiences and our expertise based off of situations we've been through in life and based off of what we know works for us and people that might be going through things we've gone through, and serve them.
Yeah.
And just serve them. And, last time I checked, when Jesus chose his disciples, he didn't choose all the experts and people that had everything figured out.
Right.
He kind of chose a bunch of degenerates.
Yes, he did.
And guess what they did? Changed the world forever.
Right.
And I'm sure far from Jesus, he died on the cross because I'm such an idiot. And I'm far from those disciples. I'm Simon Peter at best, right?
Yep.
A hothead that loves people too hard and wants to protect everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that it's biblical, and I think Jesus laid the groundwork for life, and he gave us the handbook. Find people that are broken and have their issues, but love people.
Yeah.
And there'll never be a shortage of love around here. There'll never be a time that we don't pour into these kids. And I want them to go on, and I want between their ears to be as strong as possible. I'm sending my kids to you.
That's amazing.
Alicia already said, "Oh, we're getting them in." Yeah, absolutely. And I don't need an after-action review. I don't need you to tell me a thing. I need you to love my kids, man.
That's it.
And help them be the best version of their self, and maybe catch something that me and Alicia have missed, or catch something that fell through the cracks because life and raising 4 kids and jobs and football and moving around the country. We know no parent's perfect, bro. Like, there's no perfect parenting book.
Yeah.
So I want you to help me help the 4 people I'm responsible for helping.
Yeah.
And raising. So I'm excited to get them with you. Get Brody to quit having his emotional meltdowns every time, he doesn't block somebody in practice before I punch him in the head. So I'm sending him to you first.
Yeah.
Lead junior over there.
Yeah.
But I love you, bro. I'm excited for you to be here. I'm excited for where you're at in life. I appreciate you being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what you do for these kids and the feedback from parents, because I know it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
So
me too. And I appreciate your trust. And the last thing I want to say is this, like you said, like, we can't see what we can't see. So a kid that's struggling and doesn't know why doesn't mean you're a bad kid, doesn't mean you're weak, doesn't mean you lack certain fortitude in your character or anything like that. It means you got a blind spot, man. And grown men and women are walking around this world with plenty of blind spots. And while they talk about mindset in terms of it being like a soft skill, there's nothing like soft or passive about this. Like, it is totally complementary to trying to become the most physically fit version of yourself to perform on the field in a certain way. What we're after here is we're going to increase our awareness so we have fewer blind spots. And once we become aware of these things, we gain control. And the only thing that you can control in this life is your actions and your reactions. And you can't even do that all the time, because how many times do we take an action that's really not in alignment with what we want? What is that? That's a driving belief system or a driving thought or a driving emotion that's driving us blindly. If I'm driving and you're in the passenger seat, I'm in control. This stuff drives us like that. So we're increasing awareness to gain control, and that's when you have true power in your life. Like, be a beast on the field, like Brody. Like, use that energy, but in a harnessed fashion, right? Like, the question is, do you have control over it or not? And the only way you're ever going to have control over it is working on this stuff. So it's not like out there, it's not like woo-woo, it's not soft. Like, there's nothing soft about mastery. You know what I'm saying? Like, master your mind, which will allow you to master your emotional condition, and then you can master your craft through your actions. And that's what we're going to be after here. And I'm honored by your trust to allow me to work with Brody and the rest of the kids, man. Like, I don't take that lightly. I don't take it lightly from anybody that's willing to do that. Part of the Triple F family. Like, I am blown away by the trust that's already been exhibited, just as we've kind of trickled this thing out with people allowing me to do this. I'll forever be grateful for it. I'll forever do my best to do right by your kids, and that I give you my word on, and I'm just excited, man. I'm excited for the opportunity.
I love it, bro. I love you being a resource. The two things I'll finish with is everything you just said about Brody came from me. I got the same issues. Now I'm a 35-year-old man that looks back like, dang it, I showed him that. Like, I literally taught him that. I taught it, and then he caught it, right?
Yep.
And then now, like, I'm going to be vulnerable and weak, which is the wrong word,
No doubt.
enough to look at you and say, I let my own son down, man. Like, help me. And figure out how we get to the root of this, because it's an issue that we both have, and let's end the cycle now.
Exactly.
So, and then number two, the fact that I'll never forget this: fulfilled over happy.
Yeah.
So I'm learning too. This was my free session, baby.
There you go. You got it.
I appreciate it. I'll go over to Bearden football. I got to coach sessions at Triple F tonight, but Bearden football tomorrow, the offensive linemen are getting a better version of me tomorrow, baby. I'm getting Kevin O'Shea treatment. But fulfilled over happy, man, that's big. We need to make bracelets.
Yeah.
Fulfilled over happy. And the next thing you said, and I get chills, bro. And I'm not a crier. I wish I was, but Fortune 500 CEO and alcoholic on the street. Neither one are fulfilled, and both of them are running from the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never thought, nobody's ever presented it like that. Like, you got this dude over here who's a gazillionaire. You got this dude over here on the street. Both of them are running from the exact same thing, and neither are fulfilled. Yeah. One just looks like he is. But in all reality, they're both in the same spot of vicious mindset attack.
No doubt.
And, of course, it's easier to be under attack mindset-wise in a mansion than it is under a bridge.
Yeah, it's more comfortable at least.
Right. It's more, right. But it's still the same spot, bro. And that's crazy. Who knows what God has planned for this? Right now, we're going to serve Triple F kids. And if folks out there love them some Kevin O'Shea, and this thing turns into a mindset podcast with 10 million viewers, then that's God's plan. Yeah. But right now, man, what I want is I want to add one more layer to Triple F and one more layer to these kids, and let these families see what your experience can do to help their babies, essentially, that they have such a short time with.
Right.
Because at a certain point, like when they're 14 to 18 in their house and they get this stuff, it's a lot harder when they're screaming at each other's face at the front door.
No doubt.
And my man can just leave. Mm-hmm. So, man, my guy, I love you, bro.
Love you too.
You're the best. We're going to go on life together. Yes. Me, you, our brides.
Yes, sir.
And I'm excited. So you're my guy.